Bam! MC is in the house. Alrighty then. I am going to bring up these live streams so I could see comments and whatnot. What's up, Carla? What's up, Big Mike? All right, guys, I'm just going to give people a minute to jump on. What's up, Justin? All right, we're back. Carla, how did I shoot? I shot like shit, but warmed up a bit. You know, that's what training's for. Shout out to Ryan. Went shooting with my boy Ryan this morning, and I had some fun. Got some reps on my rifle. Didn't have that many, and just wanted to get a better feel for it. So that was good. Did some pistol shooting. Big Nick in the house. What's up, Michelle? All right, got a bunch of people watching. So, what is the name of the video? It is Scary is What Children Say. So here we are. It is April 11th, and the country is still shut down. Around the country, we have people being arrested for not following social distancing nonsense. We have people who are wearing like badges. They're completely fucking useless. And I'm going to say completely useless for all intents and purposes. These homemade masks that people are wearing. There's a reason why there's a shortage of N95 masks, and it's because they work. And that is not even getting to the point of what at this point, how futile our mission or our attempt at trying to stop this virus from spreading is from the beginning. Something that came out recently is that doctors now, they noticed in the New York City area, they have a disproportionate or a very high death rate for those people put on ventilators. Anybody that has been put on a ventilator, they're noticing an unusually high death rate. Around the country, it was said to be around 50%, 40 to 50%. But in New York City, for some reason, it's as high as 80%. And what is that? Well, one of the things that is now coming about by way of alternative media is the discussion that the criteria by which New York City doctors are using the ventilators might actually be doing more harm than good. The one individual who was very close to me, who I've known over 30 years, that passed away while having COVID-19, died while he was on a ventilator. So I do have a vested interest in this personally, aside from existentially, right? So what they're saying with the ventilators is that the way that this is attacking the lungs is not in a way that the lungs cannot sort of generate the strength necessary to breathe. It's not an ability to breathe thing. It seems to be an ability to generate or to acquire enough oxygen while breathing. So there's an oxygen deficiency. And not to say, and this is what doctors are saying, I'm not a doctor, obviously. The doctor who put this out first in an individual video, New York City ER doctor, and I don't know his name. I'm going to task you guys all with going and looking this up. Not to verify as much as to pursue, your own research. But one of the things he said was that whereas those cases existed where people still needed ventilators, the strength at which the ventilators were being used was actually doing more harm than good. So it's really an oxygen deficiency that these people need. There is a couple of anecdotal stories for what it's worth. Although, hydroxychloroquine treatment as a protocol started off anecdotally, right? Before it was pretty much just shit canned by the media because Donald Trump said it and everybody fucking emotionally hates Donald Trump and can't get over it. They said that there were a couple of people who were actually on ventilators, and in light of this information, were not from this one video from the doctor, but from conversations around the country, they're starting to take patients off of ventilators, and with a lot of success combined with other treatment protocols. So what's my point for all of this? My point is, as usual, right? As usual, it is useful for tyrants to have the people they are trying to control to be scared, right? You can go to Machiavelli, and when it comes to whether it's being respected or feared, it is more useful, is more functional to have people afraid. So one of the things that I think we need to sort of wrap our heads around is, no matter where you stand on this disease, the effect of this virus, no matter where you stand, and there's a huge amount of disparity between people's positions, a huge spectrum of opinions on this. At some point, we got to get back to work, right? At some point, we got to get back to work. Stephanie, what's up, Stephanie? She says, ventilators are a last resort. Many don't come off them living. Right, and disproportionately so says a doctor in New York, and he's contending that a lot of them are being put on unnecessarily or being put on following I guess a list of settings that is atypical, which is why they are disproportionately having more people die on ventilators in New York City than they are around the country, right? So, yes, my man Irish, Mark Birmingham, he just put the link of the first video that I'd seen, and this was, I want to say, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. You guys know it's all a fucking blur at this point. We're all like living in prehistory as far as our usual, understanding of time goes. Brian Wilson, what's up, my man Brian? He says there's a reason they call it a medical practice, right? They're practicing medicine. One day they'll get it right. All right. Monk says, yes, time to be cautious because the talking permanent change of our culture and a huge step towards communism. Right. So obviously we know that, and I think it's obvious. I don't think that's an assumption on my part that it's obvious. I think at this point, everybody should have at least had their emotions come down to a functional level to where we know, we understand, we accept that at some point we have to work, right? At some point, the government's going to run out of our money, right? So if they're not getting more of our money to give back to us, you guys see how that sort of cycle gets interrupted. We have to get back to work. So one of the things that you guys should be paying attention to right now is the language that's being used by Dr. Fauci. Now, Dr. Fauci, everybody knows who Dr. Fauci is. He's not somebody that I need to just say is devious or malicious or one of these, evil, elitist, Illuminati type. Like I don't need any of that, stuff put on top of him. What I will say though is that he's a rule follower, and he's supposed to be a rule follower. He's a specialist. He's supposed to look at the information, and he's supposed to say, well, right now, if we want to stop the spread of the virus, everybody should be indoors. Nobody should be allowed to travel, right? If you're almost robotic in your approach to following the rules, that's what you expect him to say. As if you were to make a program, write a computer program, press enter, the computer's going to tell you everybody stays home, right? So having information or having advice given by a doctor that completely undermines not only the spirit of what it is to be an American, but arguably the constitutional the rights as afforded Americans, it shouldn't surprise us that he's giving us advice that is all over the place when it comes to actually being functional beyond this. So all that being said, we look at what Fauci's saying regarding now the antibodies tests, and it's sort of this other criteria that's being put out there that, well, if we can have a successful antibody test. Now, I will say from the beginning, if there's one major criticism that I've had, it's that the narrative hasn't been connected early enough or effectively enough to testing, right? There's a certain point where it's sort of the virus is out. And when you have not only cases but deaths in certain, parts of the country, I mean, there was a certain point where even the layman could understand if there are deaths in this place. We know that the deaths are such a low percentage of the people of cases. So if there is a death for every person that dies, there's arguably, 95, 99 other people that have the disease, the virus at that point. So I think testing is something that could have been done more effectively. Or I would say that we would have benefited if earlier on testing was done more effectively. I don't know if it could have been done more effectively, but I will say if we're now banking based on the opinions of doctors, rule followers like Fauci, that in order for us to open up our country, we need to have successful antibody testing. I'm going to tell Fauci to go fuck himself. Now, remember, we're the country that we pretty much have understood that this is not the plague. This is not the Spanish flu. This is not something that is that is a legitimate existential threat. Remember, the first language that started being put out there was up to 2.2 million people dead in this country. We're now down to, I think, 60,000. So from the beginning, I will tell you, I have not changed my opinion in the least. I ran what's called, and I got this framework, this model from SIOC, the de-escalation cycle. When I first heard all the information coming out of China and people saying this thing is a 20% death rate, it was go time. It was, all right, we're filling the freezers, we're getting ammo, we're doing all these different things that I've only been talking about for at least 10 years now, right? So remember, you're talking to the guy who moved his family out of the city 4 years ago for reasons like this. When shit hits the fan, we're not on the X, so to speak. All that being said, it started with oh my God, this is an existential threat, like, 20% of the human population's about to die. Okay, game time. Then we started realizing, okay, these numbers are a little bit skewed. Maybe they were a little blown out of proportion. Maybe there is now, we started noticing early on the infusion of the typical political dynamics. We looked at how the media was looking to, as usual, monopolize the narrative against Trump, and how that was just all too apparent to the point where you'd have to question, what is their actual level of concern for the safety and the health of Americans? It's baffling if you just look at what it is that they've done and how they've handled this. Everything from, how they condemned Trump for being a xenophobe when he shut down the border, to claiming that he was dangerously touting unproven medical advice and medical protocols, which both things have, with the hydroxychloroquine, both he's been exonerated because he wasn't, it turns out, doing things preemptively or egotistically or selfishly or narcissistically, or how else you want to look at it. He saw information, he saw a trend, he realized it, he made a call. One of the things that Trump's been pretty much dedicated to from the beginning is keeping the morale of the country up. And there are people who want to criticize him for that. And, all the while when, I, along with a lot of other people, were running this de-escalation cycle of preparation, I still understood that it's his job to look strong. It's his job to lift the spirits of the people of America. It's his job to keep hope there. For people who are saying that we don't need hope, we need information. Okay. In the hundreds of millions of people in this country, we could sit here and say that, well, I don't need hope. I'm prepared and I'm going to do what I need to do. And anybody that needs hope in their life is weak. And, I think not only are you being dishonest, and there may be some insecurity in even communicating that we could talk about later on, but I think it's inaccurate. And I think that all of us have faced times in our lives where as soon as we kill hope, it's like we become the almost the biological pessimist, right? We become the person where Doom and gloom is the only thing our formulas can produce for us. And we obviously don't want that to happen, certainly not at a large scale. And so those people who are, more functionally prepared mentally and logistically, I would say, well, there's still hundreds of millions of people that, are in this country along with you. And if you've ever claimed to be a patriot, or if you just functionally don't want to live in a third world, bout of chaos, then yeah, you kind of don't want everybody to panic, right? You want people to remain functional. So fast forward, getting to where we are now, the conversation is now starting more and more to center around when we're opening. My opinion on that right now, we should be completely open. The country should be completely open. Anybody who is of one of those vulnerable populations of people, the elderly, the sickly, the immunocompromised, all of those individuals should be allowed to stay home with support. You're sending everybody $1,200. Well, why don't we just take the people who are actually vulnerable and divert funds or resources towards those people? There's a larger, discussion to have to the validity of even following that model. But if we're going to send, government money that they've stolen from us, if we're going to send it to people, why don't we send it to the people who actually need it? One of the arguments you get now is, well, it's, if they're going out there and people aren't taking this seriously, there's going to be a lot of people that are dying, as if the risk alone is a counter argument for opening up the country. I just need to remind you, this is a country where we're allowed to ride motorcycles, go bungee jumping, jump out of planes. We could do all sorts of things that are pretty risky. We could, when we start getting into what are the things that are on par with the amount of risk we would be living with compared to the coronavirus, driving cars, driving cars every day, crossing streets, I don't know, eating unhealthy processed foods, smoking, drinking, all of these things have with them an inherent risk. And these are risks that not only have we learned to live with, we've always lived with. Never mind learning to live with them, we've always lived with them. And I would say the risk inherent in society now is less than it's ever been. It's part of why so many of our society are so weak. But aside from always being able to live with that risk, we would have to ask, well, what is the actual right of the government to tell us we're not allowed to live with that risk? Right? There was some, what's the word I like to use? Cunt on a local page here in Pennsylvania who yesterday had posted that he had gone to the post office. And when he went to the post office, he was disgusted because, and I'm paraphrasing in his cunty little soliloquy, he went to the post office and it was packed. And he and another guy were the only ones to have masks on. And he went to try and shame and insult all the people that were there. My position from the beginning has been, if you honestly feel that you cannot exist safely, if it is too scary to live in a public that has risk, then you should stay in your fucking house. You should stay in your fucking house. Don't ever leave. As a matter of fact, let us board it up for you after you go inside. Because we don't need none of that, right? All of that negativity, right? So that is the mindset of so many people. One of the things that I made a video about last week was just how just completely fucking disgusting it is that so many people are now being turned into rats, snitches. Now, if you have a person who is honestly, sincerely concerned about their health, listen, do what you got to do. The people that are out there wearing masks, because this is another side of the coin, I will not mock or shame anybody that's outside wearing a mask, because I don't know their situation. And they have the right to do whatever they want to do. But when people start telling me what I have to do, and it's for their safety, well, now it's a different conversation. So right now, what do I feel? I think everybody in this country should be allowed And I say allowed. Oh, it just sounds so disgusting coming out of my mouth that we should be allowed. I think it should be functionally supported by the government that we all get back to work. If you don't want to go to work, there should be some application process that you could sit at home and get some sort of support. If we're going to support anybody, there's another argument for these people should be supported by their families. They should be having some other means of support, but that's an argument that really doesn't even apply now because so many people live off the government to begin with. So the opposite end of that, who's making money, who's generating the income. I mean, this needs to happen. And more studies are coming out about it. I've been talking about this for weeks. Where you start closing down the government and, you're going to start seeing suicide spiking, drug use spiking, alcoholism spiking, domestic abuse spiking, other forms of abuse spiking. Like, why wouldn't you expect that to happen? Why wouldn't you expect what are called the diseases of despair to take a sharp turn upward? Why would you not expect that? I did a study yesterday, and I did a video about the study that I was doing. And I talked about in a 2-month span of time, right? February and March, right? So let's just say February and March. The average death rate, meaning death from all causes in America for 2017, 18, 19. The average during that 2 month, how many people died during those 2 months on average? 570,000. I think it was 569. It might even be here somewhere. No, I didn't write it down. I think it was 560. Yeah, 569,822 people was the average of the number of people that died during February, March between 2017, 18, 19. Average 570,000 people. Right now, we're at about 520. So for the last 2 months, we are in a negative in terms of overall death rate for this country. We know that the coronavirus is not an existential threat. We know it's not the plague. We know that there is not such a significant case fatality rate that we need to upend our entire way of life. We already know that. We already know that where the statistics are going to fall in terms of its case fatality rate are going to be as low as other risks that we're used to dealing with and coexisting with already. We know that there are going to be people who die from COVID-19 that would have died from other things. We already see a decline in numbers of other illnesses' death rates during this time frame. We also have the question of the integrity and consistency of statistics concerning COVID-19. There are a bunch of memes now being spread around. One of them I saw was a mock CNN headline where man shot 10 times in the head at point blank range dies from COVID-19. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, are we getting a little hysterical here? Not saying it doesn't exist. There are some people who are saying there is no such thing as COVID-19. I don't have the expertise to say that. I will say that there is something that is affecting people seemingly, and I have to admit, maybe I am biased. Maybe I have a subconscious level of confirmation bias because of my exposure to the media. Maybe they have successfully programmed me to validate this thing that otherwise should not be validated. I don't know that, right? But what I will say is that right now there are not enough statistically relevant cases to warrant how we are living our lives. So if I'm sitting here now, April 11th, right, the lion's share of my income comes from my academy in New York City. We've been closed for weeks. We don't have any idea of when the government is not going to penalize us for opening. I'm not even saying I'm going to wait for permission to open. But I understand if I do open, it comes with a level of liability, in how I'm going to be approached. A friend of mine, and I shared this on the video I did last week, a friend of mine, one of my coaching students, sent me a video at his business in Brooklyn and said that cops showed up knocking on his door saying that they had gotten calls that he was running and operating his business. He runs a gym. And I don't even think that those calls were legitimate. I don't put it past them to just be going around to all gyms in the New York City area, just making sure they're closed. It's busy work for them, gives them something to do. Crime is at an all-time low, right? Because nobody's out fucking side. So keep them busy. But what are we doing? We're suppressing citizens' ability to make a living. There's an argument that is going on right now as to the constitutional validity of any government telling us we have to close. And I don't know, I'm not a constitutional fucking scholar at a significant enough level to have that argument. But what I will say is right now, we're going to hell in a handbasket. We are fucking just sabotaging our ability to stay functional. And people are so scared, which is the thing that disgusts me the most. People are so scared that they are completely willing to give up their freedoms, their liberties as an American citizen, just so they feel more secure. And the security that they're getting is fraudulent. You not getting this is at this point more up to your levels of personal hygiene than it is any legislative actions. The government is not going to legislate anything at this point that is going to stop you from getting it to any level of significance. If you don't get it, it's going to be because you are not touching your face and you're washing your hands and you're avoiding crowded areas. I went to the supermarket earlier, right? I had to buy eggs. And I went to the supermarket and I'm not wearing a mask, obviously. And I have some of the people who aren't wearing masks, like we're giving each other the Jeremiah Johnson nod, like, that's right, freedom, motherfucker, right? But then other people, including grown-ass fucking men, are like running for me, like more so than usual, right? But running for me like I've got, a fucking plague fucking outfit on. And I just have to ask, like, what security do these people think they actually have? That the CDC actually put out a guideline that suggested people should make homemade masks. How society doesn't see that as control, right? Now, in what way are they looking to control you? Number one, they're giving you a toy to play with so you don't get, too upset. Here, you can make your own mask. And hey, it's better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing. No, it's pretty much the same as fucking nothing. The second thing, why is the CDC pushing masks? Because they want us to accept a society where everybody's wearing masks. They want to see all of us become more accepting of a culture where everybody's walking around with a mask. I refuse. I fucking refuse to put on a mask, right? Now, mind you, if I'm going to see somebody who is a vulnerable population in their home, if I am infringing upon somebody's ability to protect themselves with my presence, absolutely, I'm going to take the precautions necessary. But the same way that, as a society, if we're feeling sick, if we are sick, we should be sort of removing ourselves, isolating ourselves from other people around us so we don't make them sick. Eventually, we're going to have to do the same thing here. If they're testing for antibodies, you just got to understand that's saying that it's going to help society the more people have this and have passed through this. To now create another completely artificial engineered bottleneck of productivity based on, well, you have to get tested to show that you have the antibody in order to be able to work. It's like, fuck you. Fuck you. And now we have people sharing Bill Gates speeches. Let me tell you something about Bill Gates. Bill Gates is a fucking billionaire. I just want you to look at Bill Gates for a second, right? Does he look fucking normal to you? Does Bill Gates look like a normal fucking guy? He looks like a fucking psychopath from a fucking James Bond movie. And people are touting him as the fucking messiah right now of this fucking predicament. I need a billionaire computer fucking psychopath to tell me that I should be getting a vaccine now? Well, one of the reasons the flu hasn't annihilated society is because of the vaccine. Oh, is that really the fucking case? The vaccine, the flu vaccine that only fucking is designed to attack one strain and has an efficacy that is slightly maybe higher than thinking really positive thoughts and eating your vegetables? Get the fuck out of here. Bill Gates. Fuck Bill Gates. All right. I'm going to go down the comments. All right. Sam, what's up, Sam? Drug companies making the money. Yeah, I mean, I shared a video the other day that talked about how you could become a fucking trillionaire controlling vaccines. Like, why this is a viable, stream of revenue. This isn't Illuminati, fucking globalist, aliens, lizards. This doesn't have anything to do with that stuff. It is just a logical understanding of the way fucking commerce works. If I trick the whole fucking world into needing a vaccine unnecessarily, and everybody purchases it to the point where they're so fucking weak and stupid, they mandate the use of that vaccine, it's a great way to become a fucking trillionaire right there. Have you ever fucking read the childhood fucking fable, The Emperor's New Clothes? Read that, please. This is old wisdom. This isn't new. All right. All right, Bob Harrison. What's up, Bob? He says, freedom or death, plain and simple. Free men and women do not concern themselves with the whining of sheep collective. They live their lives in complete freedom. And it's their time to die. They go down standing up. And, the thing is, and I'm in complete agreement with you, Bob. The thing is, we look at that type of sentiment and people are so disconnected from it. Everybody's just willing to dismiss it. Everybody's willing to dismiss that type of sentiment. I'm going to die on terms that are, to the best of my ability, designed by me. Right? If there's a car coming towards me, I'm going to move out of the way. If there is a pressing, imminent threat, I am going to act in a way that allows me to counter that threat. But I am not going to change the nature of who I am and how I live for something just to be safe. Just to be on the safe side. Better safe than sorry. Monk says, remember, this came out of China in the same town that had a bioweapons lab. Now, I will tell you, I've heard a lot, I've read a lot, I've watched a lot concerning the origins of this virus. And, China right now, I mean, there were people who were believing the statistics coming out of China in the beginning. Early on in one of my videos, I said, listen, why would China ever tell us the truth? If you were a Chinese leader, why would you want to tell the world the truth? You're the head of a communist party, a communist-run government. All of a sudden, human rights and safety is a concern of them? What the fuck are you doing? People want to try and bash Trump over arguments that are supported by Chinese statistics. It's you're a fucking retard. Joe Osborne says, in lieu of allow, the move to go back to work should be acceptable by the government. Freedom should not be in the shadow of the question. That place belongs to the competency of their leadership. Well, basically, as soon as I know to a functional level of certainty that I'm not going to be bankrupted or jailed to running my business, I'm going to be open. The position, the argument is really how many people are going to stay inside because they are still scared of dying. That's the real predicament that we're in. It's just it's comical how, you know, social distancing, this and that, and now homemade masks. Everybody goes to the same supermarkets. Everybody goes to the same. Everybody still uses mass transit. Everybody still goes to the post offices. Everybody still goes to the hospitals. Everybody, like, people are congregating constantly, and then they're going back home and they're bringing this back to their own tribe, right? Their own houses, and making sure that everybody there is exposed. Let me turn off my dehumidifier. So if you're somebody who's sitting there going, well, we need to do our part to make sure this doesn't spread, it's like, you know, sorry, that ship has sailed. It sailed a long time ago, and right now we have a country that we could probably say, in lieu of understanding the actual threat and mortality rate that's expected to be maybe 0.5% to 0.2%, like, maybe it's a good thing that everybody was exposed to this at large numbers. Because, you know, they say as soon as there's an 80%, you know, 80% of a population carries antibodies for a disease, you have an effective level of herd immunity, yada, yada, yada. Well, did we think that we were just going to keep this boogeyman away forever? What happens when the next boogeyman shows up? What happens when the deaths from this, the hospitalizations, and all the other relevant statistics that are being kept and thrown all over the media, what happens when all of those go down, and then we open up for business? And then in the fall, we start getting these numbers spike again. Do we close down again there? This is not a viable solution. This is not sustainable. It's not sustainable now. It's certainly not sustainable as an approach to this situation moving forward. Harold, what's up, Harold? Oh, Grace. Grace says, fuck masks. Absolutely. Fuck masks. Harold Wilson says, I refuse to give up my freedom for anyone. I'll just be glad when this shit is over. You and me both, my friend. Justin says, I got sneered by a guy in a mask in his car waiting at a red light. Like, you can't make this shit up. Sam says, in New Jersey, now you have to wear a mask to go into the stores. Well, I'll be traveling probably at some point tomorrow, and I'm going to go in the store without a mask. We're going to see how that plays out. I'll let you guys know. Mark says, my sister goes to the store before work in her scrubs. The fucking aisle's clear like the parting of the Red Sea. That's a good fucking idea. Now's the time to buy some scrubs if you got to go shopping. You might get all your shit for free. Grace says, I wear my scarf to help people not freak out, but I won't wear a mask. Yeah. Pavlov's dogs. Yes. Fucking conditioned behavior. Schrodinger's virus. You can't be tested, so you both have it and don't have it at the same time. Oh, so good. So good. Hal says, Bill Gates should stay in his lane. He has no business in the medical field. Well, the unfortunate thing, he only has business in the medical field. Fucking A. Sam says, yeah, Xbox sucks. Listen, shut your mouth, young man. Shut your mouth. Hater. Monk says, most of the people that are staying home are the rich. Well, here's another, it's a great point, and another topic that needs to be discussed with this whole thing. The rich don't fucking care. You know, they aren't going to suffer. They understand this is just another hurdle that they are so isolated from. They're fine. What's going to happen? You're going to have individuals who have jobs, middle class, live check to check, that are just going to be crushed. They're the ones that are suffering. All of the working people are going to be crushed. They're the ones that are going to pay the price for this. For everybody's safety, right? I had made a point in one of my earlier videos about, you know, exactly how many lives is a 20-year-old American supposed to be responsible for? This 20-year-old, who statistically speaking, probability-wise, is just about fucking functionally immune to this thing. But he's supposed to stay home and not be a 20-year-old? I don't know, like, there's probably guys around that age now. Those of us are a little bit older than that. We remember the energy that we had at that point in our lives. all the things that we were involved in and working toward. And like, we are crushing our culture for something that affects a small component of our society. Those vulnerable individuals, go and protect yourself. Or better yet, get healthy. Chris says the flu vaccine is about 30%, has about a 30% efficacy rating for that specific flu. That's right. The military took my DNA when I joined, says Mark. I volunteered, so I'm good with it. Guess who's going to get yours now? Look at the bright side. Perhaps the FBI will close some cold cases. All right. Joe says, tinfoil hat time. Using a crisis to further the idea of divide and conquer, race division, sex division, class division hasn't worked well. Let's try dividing them using an ultimate fear, a virus. Is that too far out there? At this point, and we don't even have to get all conspiracy themed to just deal with this potential fucking reality. Why wouldn't they use that? You know, let's take the attacks on the president. You know, whether you support the president or not, he was not a Russian operative. Yet that is what tens of millions of dollars and 2 years of his presidency was dedicated toward proving that he was. Then it became the Ukrainian conversation where he was, you know, doing the quid pro quo, withholding support for the Ukraine unless they helped and aided him build a case against Biden. That was proven to be false. Threw everybody for a loop when he shared the actual fucking transcript of the phone call. You know, having people scared of something that is completely engineered in order to get them to do something or support something it's a successful formula, right? Look at the Patriot Act, right? Everybody in the country was like, yeah, let's get the terrorists. Everyone's out to get us. We have to fucking stand together. We have to do all these different things. So let's support this thing that allows our government to fucking spy on us like we're fucking lab animals. Stephanie says, I'm not going to take that vaccine. Nope, absolutely not. And nor am I. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not taking any fucking vaccine that fucking Bill Gates wants to fucking give me. How many viruses do computers have? Give your fucking computers a vaccine, you fuck. David Caseman, my man, Dr. Dave, he writes, don't forget that under the 1986 Child Vaccine Safety Act, vaccines became the only liability-free product in the United States. You cannot sue your doctor. You cannot sue your doctor. Vaccines are a liability-free product. So now why would there have to be legislations to protect somebody from liability, legal liability? Because they know there is an inherent liability and risk that they do not want. They don't want to hold themselves accountable to. By the way, Dr. Dave had coronavirus and is now fine, as the overwhelming majority of people. Rockstar says, did I lose my thing here? Where am I? Rockstar said, I had a doctor's appointment for Monday, so they told me I can't come in without a mask. I was like, no problem, suck it easy. Mike Pierce says, the overall weakness of the average American man might be the most concerning thing about this whole ordeal. I've learned a lot about my fellow man during this time. Absolutely, and I agree. I agree. We have a bunch of people who all too willingly were making moves to rat out neighbors to government representatives. See, anybody that calls the government on one of their neighbors without trying to resolve the situation first, to me is it's about as un-American as it gets. But you have people right now, again, that are so scared, that are so filled with fear, That's exactly what they're doing. And all the people around you, and I've got people all over the country. I got a few Canadians here too, and probably some other countries, people watching. Anybody that when the heat is on, you realize that they were willing to throw you to the government, in a moment's notice. Like, you need to take note of those individuals. Once this thing passes and everybody gets back to normal, those are people that, if they are in your tribe, need to be thrown the fuck out. If there are people that are in your charge, meaning you're responsible for these people in some way, then you better start investing some serious resources, because it's a dysfunctional philosophy that anybody would throw their neighbor under the bus of the government in order to feel safe. It doesn't take much for the government to threaten those people's safety artificially to get those things to happen. Brian James, what's up, my man? He said the people need to set a date and formulate a plan. The time to peacefully and sensibly resist is coming. You and I are on the same page, my friend. There's a certain point where, okay, I have a wife and 4 children. Exactly how long am I supposed to withhold myself from earning a living to provide for my family? They're giving $1,200 to everybody. $500 for kids, I think. What about, I have a business. I have a business that people rely on. I have a business that serves a functional role in the community in which it exists. I am not somebody that could just be given a $1,200 check once a month and be okay. I have rent. I have mortgages. I have car payments. I have food bills. I have, like everybody else. I'm no fucking different. I'm better off than most. And here I am. I know that I can't function like this. And I know that based on the statistics that everybody agrees upon, even though they come to different conclusions as to how to react to those statistics, based on those same statistics, I am not scared, nor do I feel threatened from this disease. I can get this disease tomorrow. I could be fucking dead next week. I don't give a shit. Right now, it does not pose enough of a threat for me to change my lifestyle and to willingly avoid providing for my family. Right? There's 2 sides to this coin, and people seem to think that, oh yeah, we could just, do whatever's in our power to avoid this virus, and everything else will magically be okay. Right? It's not the way it works. Matt Shell says, if homemade masks work, how come filtered cigarettes don't stop lung cancer? Yeah, the fact that the CDC, put out there that we should all be making homemade masks. Like, how do you not understand that is just a fucking doggy treat thrown at you? So, yeah, look, you could have control too. Here, you're in charge of your own fate, your own destiny. Make your homemade mask. What sucks is, and I think it sucks for selfish reasons, is that when I go out in public with no mask on, nobody says anything to me. Nobody says anything. That guy that I was talking about earlier, that was in a local Facebook group, talking about, he's disgusted by people who aren't wearing masks. He went to the post office and it's one other guy and him were the only ones that have masks on, and fucking people are stupid and all these different things. He was on that thread calling women assholes and morons and stupid, and like, that one of these fucking guys called my wife a fucking moron. See how that's going to go. Just for having a disagreement with him, by the way. Just for having a disagreement with him. I went to Lowe's yesterday, right? I had to buy some valves and stuff. I didn't even know what these things were a year ago. And the policy they're running now is they only allow a limited number of people in the store, right? So they have somebody at the exit, somebody at the entrance, and they're keeping, I guess, tally of how many people are there because they've done some math to figure the square footage for social distancing. And what do? You walk in there, everybody's fucking in the same areas getting the same stuff. Like, the point being, yeah, they're making an effort, but it's fucking retarded. It's ridiculous. If you are going to get coronavirus, you're going to fucking get it. It doesn't matter if they stop the number of people that are in the store. It's just not going to fucking happen. If you're that concerned about getting coronavirus, don't go to the fucking store. Don't leave your fucking house. Right? There are shows about people that are too scared to leave their house. Right? Oh. Just stay home and keep fucking eating. You guys ever see that show, My 600-Pound Life? Right? My wife and I were watching it with the kids because we want them to see, what happens when these people become so dysfunctional that they just stay in their house. Well, there's a certain point where you gain so much weight where you get a chair, right? All these people, they get to a point where they get so fucking fat and they lose their ability to ambulate. They get a fucking chair, right? So anybody that's so scared about this, just buy the chair now. Just buy the chair, sit down, and I'm sure you get plenty of government agencies to drop fucking processed food off and disgusting food, and you could just watch all the fucking useless, cable TV programming, and you'll be fine. Do you, boo-boo? All right, Trump 2020. And again, I don't think politics is even necessary in this conversation, but obviously you guys know I am all about Trump. Nick Castiglia, up in Canada. Some countries' governments are not going on lockdown. What are your thoughts on that? Good for them. Good for them. This threat is not, and again, this is probably me making a personal assessment. But I will say that personally, I don't feel, when you look at the statistics of how these things, of how they're playing out as far as the case fatality rate, I don't think it warrants shutting the country down. I think early on in this process, certain groups, subsets of citizens were identified as being vulnerable to this virus. And I think early on, those groups should have invested in themselves to curtail their exposure, at least until proper medical protocols were developed. These protocols are being developed now. Early on, I spoke about the ventilators and how there was a doctor, and my boy Mark shared the link, a doctor and he started this conversation nationally. It is now a national conversation amongst doctors that the protocols that are being used for ventilators are actually causing more harm to patients than good. So there are people who would have died from other things that are dying from this. There early on was no treatment for this, as far as people knew. This is a novel virus, right? This is new. They're figuring shit out as they go, and that's to be expected. But right now there are viable treatment protocols. We are discovering mistakes that were made early on that can be resolved right now. The people who have not closed the countries who haven't closed down, who haven't gone on lockdown, good for them. Bolsonaro, who was the president in Brazil, early on he had a conversation. My wife's from Brazil, so I stay connected to that information. He was telling people, like, what am I going to, I'm just going to lock down everything and nobody's going to go to work. He was talking about the people who make money selling things at fucking on the corner and at red lights and all these different things. Like, he's like, even if we gave money, the government gave people money, those people aren't going to get it. Those people aren't connected to any, recordable or surveilled population. He goes, we just tell people, everyone to stay in, not do it. Like, everything goes down. Like, nobody's going to have money to eat. There are some people who, from the beginning, were saying that, listen, we just got to build an immunity, a herd immunity to this, and take care of the people who are, making a turn for the worse. Right now, and I'm going to go to worldometers.info and look at the current statistics. And the statistic that's relevant here is active cases, right? So if you go to worldometers.info /coronavirus, they have the overall worldwide cases. The worldwide cases, Deaths, okay. Recovered, okay. But if you look at the section that says active cases, this is of note. Out of the 1.2 million active cases, 96% of current active cases are considered to be in mild condition. 4% are in serious or critical condition. Up until 2 days ago, it was 5%. So it was 95 and 5. It is now 96 and 4. It's relevant to cite that because there is an inconsistent criteria for the death count. For even cases, right? Early on, they were saying, listen, if you exhibited these symptoms, we just assumed that you were a COVID patient. That wasn't the presumed positive. That was something else. But you look at these other countries, we know that they had this growing number of cases, but they didn't have the tests to warrant that increase in cases. So if they didn't have the tests, because tests have been an issue, then how were these cases increasing so exponentially? It's because there was a criteria of screening based on symptoms that they were using. Well, it's inconsistent. How many people died while testing positive for coronavirus that died from something else? This is all information that's going to be, dissected moving forward later on. Long term, we'll have a better understanding of this. We'll have a better understanding of what the actual statistics are concerning the mortality rate, concerning, how many people early on died from this as opposed to people who died while having this. How many people died while having this that were treated by protocols that wound up pushing them over the edge? Namely, I'm thinking about the ventilators. How now doctors are saying we were misdiagnosing, using the wrong protocols for ventilator settings. And we were actually crushing people's lungs. One individual that I know personally that passed on a ventilator in New York City. Dr. Dave, social distancing may have flattened the curve, but new evidence suggests that it has elongated it. Viruses and epidemics are designed to spike until a certain percentage of people become infected and build immunity, resulting in a decline of the spread. So, absolutely, 100% true. And this was known from the beginning. From the beginning, we understood that, the whole argument for flat, and they've changed the fucking game now. Because initially, you guys understand that the whole argument for flattening the curve was to ensure that our hospital system, our healthcare system was not broken, was not overrun. All the terms they used, right? Oh, but there's such a shortage of PPE. There's, we're running out of masks. We're running out of ventilators. Well, here's something to that needs to be considered. There's a difference, or I should say there is the possibility of both ends of that supply of equipment affecting the state of it. It could be a over the or abnormally high usage, right? We're using everything so much that we're running out of it. Or it could be the threat is so high that the supply line is compromised. And now there is lack of a supply line to provide the people who are using these things. Either way, the people who need them don't have them, right? Either they're overrun and they need them, or the more likely scenario, my position on it, people were so scared or saw, the fucking greedy cocksuckers who started hoarding and stockpiling the equipment. People saw the opportunity to somewhat control the narrative and or make money by intercepting the supply line. So the people who are, saying they don't have equipment, the doctors and nurses and everybody in between, who are saying they don't have equipment, I believe them. I'm just not willing to say they don't have this equipment because they're being overrun. If that were the case, why did Washington have to give a hospital back to the government? Why did the USS Comfort, right, the Navy hospital ship that was supposed to be dedicated to the overflow of non-COVID-19 patients, why did they have to open it up to COVID patients now? It's because they didn't have any non-COVID patients that were overflowing to the point where they needed the use of that ship. I'm not saying that the threat isn't valid. My whole position, or my whole reason for bringing these things up, is that I'm just showing that we weren't overrun. So the whole social distancing, stay home, is flatten the curve. So our hospital system didn't break. Early on, these conversations were happening when people were still scared of 2 million people dying. Our relationship with reality has changed. Reality has always been reality, but our relationship with it is a lot less clouded, a lot more accurate, a lot more realistic right now. So why are we still running on the premises that were designed and implemented at a point where we thought the fucking sky was falling? Earthsong White Wolf, fucking epic name. Earthsong White Wolf writes, "Death is a constant companion. Live life fully and completely. When the time comes, nothing and no one will be able to stop death from taking you." I've said for about 10 years now, publicly, I've said it longer privately, the only two things I am interested in my life is a strong legacy and a good death. Well, you know what? I have 4 beautiful, healthy, intelligent children. I have a tribe. My legacy is set. Right now, I'm not running from dying. It doesn't mean that I'm running to die, right? Because that's being foolish. However, if you're somebody who thinks you're supposed to do everything in your power to avoid death at any cost, I got news for you. You're going to lose. Monk says, "We had the shortages because we gave up our national security and let our enemies make our masks and drugs, and therefore when demand came high, the highest bidder, our drugs and masks are made in China. See a pattern yet?" Absolutely. So it's now already out that not only was China hoarding masks and preventing masks from being shipped out of their country during the initial growth of the epidemic in China, but they're now refusing to allow other countries, or after that were refusing to allow, they were outbidding other countries in the acquisition of equipment. This is a supply argument why there's no equipment. There's not an overburdening of the world's healthcare system. Now, Italy seemed to be an anomaly early on, right? Well, what about Italy? What about Italy? What about Italy? I shared a couple of days ago an article of, or a study that was done on Italy that was published in November 2019 that was studying why Italians disproportionately die from the flu. Italy, oldest country in Europe, unhealthy, third world healthcare system. Like there were a whole bunch of things that weren't in their favor. And again, and I shared the video that I did, I think yesterday, where I was looking at the expected death rate during the February and March months in America, based on the average people who have died, the number of people from all causes that have died, 2017, 18, and 19. The 3 years, all the people that died in those 2 months, the average is about 570,000 people. These last 2 months, 520,000 people died. And that was me being liberal. It's probably lower than that. So we're already at a net negative in terms of people that have died overall. We have 50,000 more people alive right now that would not have been. So again, this fucking virus is not, crushing our fucking existence. George Lara, Pee-wee! He said, "I just shared with you something about how doctors are being told to fudge the numbers and say deaths are being caused strictly by COVID." Well, now you have to, and listen, I believe it. But why would, right? Because the response for a lot of people would be, why would doctors do that? Well, doctors, number one, and I know many doctors, a lot of great people. I know a couple of assholes that are doctors too, but doctors are people just like you and me. They have bills, they have work. One of the things that happened, that has always happened in the science community in terms of research, is following or supporting narratives just to get research money, research grants. And it might not be just for profiteering. It might very well be just the ability to do what they wanted to do. So is there money at stake here? Is there money at stake for hospitals in the epicenters of this virus pandemic? Absolutely. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? There's a reason that's old wisdom. It's because it's true. And right now, it is in the hospital's best interests to show more overwhelming, significant numbers. Remember a couple of weeks ago when Trump shouted out Cuomo for having a stockpile of ventilators. And the next day, Cuomo came out during his press conference and said, well, of course I'm stockpiling them. I'm getting them ready for the apex, which is sound logic. If there are not people currently without ventilators. And there was. You had an individual, a woman ER nurse, I want to say from Elmhurst Hospital, maybe. And during a video, she said, listen, we're short on ventilators. We're requesting that our ventilators, that we get more ventilators, and they sent us 5. Here are the 5. So they were already rationing out these supplies. You know, congruent with that reality or that narrative, you saw Cuomo now say that he was going to be the dealer of the equipment in the state of New York. If you were a hospital that did what you were supposed to do and put together supplies to prepare for this expected spike in cases and all of the shitstorm that comes along with an increase in cases, Cuomo said, nope, we'll be able to take your shit and bring it to other hospitals that weren't as prepared. How the fuck are you supposed to stand for that? Now, I will say, luckily, the models were so fucking overblown that this never became an issue. Yeah, but people still died. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's tragic. And I will certainly not undermine the value of anybody that died. I'm just arguing, number one, do we know enough at this point to know whether they died from it or while having it? Do we know enough, given the new narrative or the new conversation that's happening nationally regarding the prescription protocols for ventilator use? Do we know that there weren't individuals that maybe could have made it that didn't because they were having ventilators used on them too aggressively? Whereas they thought it was a lack of strength in the lungs and the body's ability to breathe, it was actually just a deficiency in oxygen. Lastly, do we know that these individuals that have died, do we know with absolute certainty that statistically we could expect that they would have died from something else because they were in such poor health? There are a lot more questions that are being put out there. And no matter where you stand on them, I think it's just hard to put together an argument for not allowing people to go back to work. You don't force people to work. We never force people to work. But we don't get in the fucking way of people working. I will tell you right now, the minute that I do not have crippling fines and or jail looming over my head, my school is open. And I will be on the mat with everybody else. There will be no social distancing. There will be no fucking mask, mandatory mask wearing. I promise to do my best to not allow mocking of the individuals that are wearing them in my school. But come on, man. Come on. This is the country, like, we're not hypocrites at all. The country where I can get a ticket for not having a seatbelt on Monday and take my motorcycle to work on Tuesday and get no such ticket. You guys remember the picture that I shared? I think I was wearing this fucking shirt like a week or two ago. And the meme that I put with it, I said, this is me watching the government protect me. Existential threats, yeah. There's a certain level of threat that, yeah, we got to work. We got to go. Wartime, things like that. This isn't that. Maybe we thought it was in the beginning. Maybe there were people in the know who knew it wasn't, but just did what they had to make sure that we still replied or we still reacted the way they wanted us to. But no matter where we were at the beginning, it's time to fucking open up. I'm not sitting here saying, I knew this was bullshit from the beginning. I knew. It would have been irresponsible for me to have that position from the beginning. Was I skeptical? Of course I was skeptical. But I still went and got fucking hundreds of pounds of fucking meat to put in the freezer. I still got fucking thousands of rounds of fucking ammo. I still got, my family, my tribe on lock and had everybody prepared. Because that's the de-escalation cycle that I learned from SIOC. That is the cycle that tells me, listen, a threat shows, make sure my full capabilities are brought up to line. And then we downgrade as information comes into our view. So no matter where you started right now, there is not a valid argument for keeping the country closed. There will be more people who die by staying closed, and I think this is the easiest way to put it, and it's statistically defendable, provable. There will be more people that die as a result of us staying closed than there will be if we stay the way we are right now. Than there will be if we open up. Said that wrong. Monk says they're using whatever they can to destroy Trump. And I think, wherever you are on Trump, it's just hard to not agree with the very just simple assessment that the media narrative has been consistently anti-Trump from the point where he started running for president. There is no reason to expect this to be any different. I don't even believe that the other fucking Fredo Como from CNN even had fucking coronavirus. I don't believe it for a fucking heartbeat. All right, guys, I've been going over an hour. My throat's starting to hurt. Getting all fucking riled up. So, the conclusion. The country needs to open up. You got Cuomo and de Blasio arguing now over who gets to say schools stay open and closed. There is no agreement in government as to what the fuck is happening right now. It's become politics. Everybody is trying to position themselves as the hero, as the person, the leader. Do I think Trump is a leader? Best leader we fucking got right now. The CDC, perfect example. The CDC guidelines for having homemade masks, as fucking ridiculous as the idea of a homemade mask to protect yourself from a fucking virus that is said to be between 1 to 5 microns fucking big. As ridiculous as that is, it was still the guidelines put out by the CDC. So Trump, in one of the videos last week, shared those guidelines. And if you remember what he said, right after he shared the guidelines, he said, I'm not doing it. He's like, but you guys want to do it, go ahead. It's what the CDC is saying. I'm not doing it. So you guys got to focus, man. You got to focus. You're stronger than you realized. How many people right now are going to look at this and be beaten down even lower than they have been before this? As opposed to how many people are looking at this as the opportunity it is to not only become mentally strong, but to get your body healthy, to build a relationship with your mortality, if that's something you haven't done yet, to understand and realize just how important the people around you are, as evidenced by what we've had to do as communities during this shutdown. How many people are going to look at this as the opportunity to become a better version of themselves, as opposed to those who are just waiting it out so they can go back to this selfish, aquarium fish type reality? It's up to you as an individual, but as a country, we need to open back up. There's no argument against it at this point. All right, guys, I appreciate you. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.